Seb Dromo, it's Tuesdays with Ted, and we got another great guest, Krause Schwalm, who I've seen you online forever, that we met through Brian Kurtz's Titans Accelerator.
We did. And just so you know, it's Kim Krause Schwalm. Most
Kim
people, even
Krause.
people who know me well, do
There we
end up
go.
mispronouncing it. So, yeah.
So you've
Good
been
to be
doing,
here.
tell us about how you got started, and you've been doing copywriting, and what led you down
Well,
that path.
I always knew I wanted to get into marketing, and that's kind of a whole little side story. But my parents talked me out of it because they didn't think it was a good career for a woman. They really thought it was just sales, right? Back in the day. And so I went down one path of maybe starting to major in accounting, and then I switched to math and stats, but I always knew I wanted to be in marketing. And I finally got my first couple jobs out of college. I was getting some actual good experience to apply to marketing. And sure enough, in my second job, I moved from the actuarial department of a big insurance company to the marketing department. And that's when I got my first exposure to direct response marketing, because this was marketing directly to individuals, including the older market, who would buy insurance directly from the company. And from there, it just, I was doing everything from building a marketing database to, planning advertising campaigns to actually sometimes writing, short little bursts of copy and getting it all marked up with a red pen. And so I continued down the marketing path. I was a brand manager at one point, and then I went to Phillips Publishing. I launched and ran a supplement business for them. I became a publisher, but copy was always something I could do, and I was able to do well. And I would manage people who did copy, and I'd also, more importantly, work with these outside freelance copywriters. And I was like, wow, they have a great life and they're making some really good money, and they don't have to work 40, 50 hours a week like I am. So when I launched my first child, I decided, maybe I need to think about this freelance copywriting. And I came back to work for a while, and I decided to take the leap. And so that was, that first child is now 24 years old. So
There you go.
yeah. So, it was from being a good marketer, but also realizing that I could write and that there was this thing called copywriting.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of this thing that there was a lot of demand for if you actually know how to do it. And I think being a good marketer has given me an edge, really understanding the marketing side.
Yeah. I remember my first copywriting course, might have been 20 years ago. It
Yeah.
wasn't about the copy itself, it was about those highlighting, yellow highlights and the bolding and the
Yeah. AIDA.
right,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because I did get my MBA in marketing. I did that part-time, when I was still in my marketing career. And but yeah, so that's what I've been doing. And then the last, no, I would say it's been at least 3 years now, 3, 4 years. I started building my own email list, which I think is what we're going to be talking about today. And
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even sure what the heck I was going to even do with it. It was kind of fell into it, where I was interviewed by somebody kind of similar to this, but it was a Facebook Live. And they're like, well, what's your lead magnet and how do people sign up? And I'm like, so I kind of just threw it all together. And next thing I knew, I was building a list. And I was like, I guess I should email these people. Didn't really have anything to sell them. Eventually I had stuff to sell them to. And now it's like it's like probably at least 50% of what I do. I mean, I still do some work with clients, but I am also mentoring other copywriters. So that takes a big chunk of my time. But now I have my own products and courses, and I just love, connecting with my email list and growing it, and, influence people and sharing what I've learned from, more than 2 decades.
Yeah. No, what you're going to talk about, for years, I had an email list and I would just send boring technical stuff. Here's how to do this on LinkedIn, or here's how to set up a Twitter account. Then I learned, probably from you indirectly and
Mm-hmm.
others, if you tell stories and be yourself, be real. It's
Yeah.
sad that you have to say be real to build relationships.
Right. And that was actually even the subject line of the email I sent out to my list yesterday, letting them know about this, like, let's get real. And I have really high open rates. I mean, I assume they're pretty high. I'd be disappointed if it's anything below 25%. Usually it's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty good. I mean, assuming it's accurate. I know there's a lot of, dispute about how accurate these open rates are. But yeah, I think, having intriguing subject lines is very key.
Yeah.
But I think the big part of this, why I think it works to tell stories and reveal some of yourself to your audience, is people deep down, we really just want to be entertained. You know, there is that business side. We want to know the technical stuff, like you were saying, or we want to know how to get better at copywriting or whatever nuggets that I'm sharing. But we just like to have a little fun. You know, it's just human nature to be entertained, to want to, stay away from things that are too much like work or dry or boring. And so when you bring in that human element and you maybe share a story, I mean, I have marketing emails where I'm sharing stories. I don't know, you are on my list. So I just had a promotion last week for a product that I was retiring that I described as getting ready to move to a condo in Florida, take up pickleball, and for fun, start driving the speed limit on I-95 just to annoy the tourists, but like, it's just that kind of language that, it kind of makes people be entertained, even though they're being also sold at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's also very freeing as a copywriter to be able to write whatever the heck you want to your list. And there's no client saying, I don't know if we want to say that, or,
Yeah.
it's really up to you, right? You kind of live or die by what you write, but it's also very freeing.
Yeah, since I started sharing information about myself and my family and telling stories, people reply and says, I love your emails. What changed? I can't wait for your next email now.
Yeah. Well, that's good. The other thing that I've heard sometimes of, pain points about this, like people feeling like they want to tell stories, but they're like, my life's boring and it's not interesting enough. You don't need to have a fascinating life. I mean, I've written emails just about how excited I am. Like, I think it was during COVID, like, driving down the street and seeing somebody out on the street. And it was like, oh my God, there's a person, like, we can write about things and then there's also very relatable,
Right.
so it's not like, oh, I lived this glamorous life and I went to Dubai last weekend and next weekend I'm off to Vegas. I mean, people get sick of that after a while, like, okay,
Right.
my life stinks. I don't want to hear any more about your fabulous life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's good just to tell them, like, maybe some of the crappy stuff that's happening, even,
Yeah.
just the mundane, the everyday, but it's that connection, that keeps
They
it real.
really get to know you at a different level
Mm-hmm.
instead of these. When I first started learning marketing, they talked about your fictitious character. You had to make up a person that you pretended to be when you marketed. Like, that didn't work.
Yeah. And, people go through branding is like a really big thing now. Like, what's your brand? And I actually just made big investments of time and money last year coming up with a whole new branding strategy. It's get dangerously good copywriting. It's all about, I show people how to get dangerously good. And that's something we can have fun with because I can be a little bit of a badass and I can kind of, maybe I feel a little more free to tell my stories. And sometimes I will even take a position like, maybe, don't listen to these gurus that say XYZ or things like that, right? Where I can almost be sort of that rebel or that, I can be a little dangerous. And that felt genuine and authentic to me, after a lot of thinking. Like if I had picked some brand that just didn't feel like me, I'd always be trying to be something I wasn't. So it's very important, either just be you. You don't necessarily need a whole branding strategy. But if you go that route, it's got to be something that really feels authentic. And it can really be powerful in getting you to differentiate yourself from everybody else out there when it
Yeah.
becomes something that's memorable.
Yeah, I get that a lot lately. It's like people, I reach out, I'm sharing all this information. I share my emails on LinkedIn as a post, even. And then I get on the phone with people and go, oh, wow, you're just like you are in your messaging. Like you're the same
And
person.
that's exactly what you want. Or if you meet them in person at a live event, which thankfully we're starting to have now again, which is wonderful. I went to one a few weeks ago and um, yeah, and it's just like you just want to be able to be you. I remember hearing Laura Belgray speak probably 3 years ago, one of the live events that, before the whole COVID thing hit. And, her whole talk was about, I'm Laura F. and Belgray and I get paid to be me. And that's basically, she's a great role model for that. She tells a lot of funny stories in her emails. But yeah, again, it's people want to be entertained. They want to feel a connection. They want to feel there's a real human being there at the other end. People reply to my emails. I'm the one that always responds to them. I love, hearing from people. And It's not
Yeah.
one of those things I want to farm out. Like if I had 100,000 or 5,000 of these every day, obviously I'd have to have people doing it, but it's manageable.
Yeah. No, people like Laura. I saw her speak probably the same event. It was,
Yeah, it might have been.
she's awesome.
Yeah,
And she just tells it like it is, then you know what you're getting. There's no fake persona there.
right.
Yeah.
Another person who has influenced me early on was Ben Settle, you
Yeah.
know. And it's interesting because I know him personally, and I mean he can be definitely a bit of a curmudgeon, but he's actually a much nicer person than most people might think. Um, but yeah, he's definitely got that personality that comes across in his emails, and you
He's got
expect,
an edge.
yeah, he's got that edge to him, and
And he says it like I'm repelling people I don't want to work with, and I'm attracting people I do want to work with.
that's true. That's true. So, yeah, but the main thing is you've got to figure out who are you, just be you. You don't have to have some glamorous life that you write about. You can write about the most ordinary things. A lot of most ordinary things are really quite hilarious.
Right.
You can tell stories about your family. Don't feel you have to reveal a lot of personal stuff if that doesn't make you comfortable. Like I talk a bit about my kids. I just had an email that was like how to torture your teenage children, where I told a kind of a funny story. And I don't know if they ever saw it or not. I'm like, you can, I think they would have been fine with it, but I tried to be respectful, not to reveal too much. And then just as far as really personal stuff with myself, I have a limit. I have a boundary, with what I'm willing to share or comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
I think that's different for everybody. Yeah, I've seen people share really deeply, deeply personal stuff. And, one guy I know shared with his list that he had recovered from addiction, several years ago to opioids. And it was a very, I'm sure people who are on his list, including me, like there was certain bond because of that revelation. But I think it just has to be your judgment call if it feels comfortable for you, if it feels right.
Some
Yeah,
people share too much information.
I would just say share what you're comfortable with. Don't
Yeah.
feel that just because people say do personality emails and tell stories, you've got to figure out what you personally feel comfortable with sharing.
Yeah. And we love stories. Yeah, the sales letters from the past or all the hype. It's all about, make them feel their pain and drag them down into the pain. And their emails would come across like that too. Now it's like you get a great email like from you. It's a story. It's going to be entertaining, or you're going to learn something.
Right. And sometimes the more surprising, like I've had some emails, like I had one about the show me the hookers was the subject line, right? And it was a funny story about being in Genoa, Italy with my son who was, 20s. And he's like, Mom, I can't believe you didn't see, where we were. There was hookers in the middle of the day on every corner. So I'm like, well, let's go back and show me them, and we kind of wandered around, but then I segued into this whole story about maybe you feel like, you're coming across as too desperate or needy when you're meeting clients or this or that, right? But it was like, somehow there was a connection to the story, right? And it just made it, but it doesn't have to be this obvious connection, right? The whole thing is, share a funny story, hook them in, and then maybe teach them something new, and it might lead to a sale. It might not, depending on what your goal is with that email.
Right. Yeah. How often do you email your list?
Well, it kind of depends on all the things that I've, got on my plate, which has been a lot of different things, personal life with my elderly mom. I would say on average, at least 3 to 4 times a week.
Okay.
And again, I think people have to figure out what's comfortable for them and what works for them. I mean, some people say every day. That is my goal. Ultimately, I'd like to do it every day, at least Monday through Friday, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I used to email like once a month or once every other month, and it'd be really boring. Then I started, actually, when I followed Laura and I was in Ben Settle, I had his newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
I started writing stories every day. I just enjoyed writing it.
Yeah.
And I do like 3 or 4 or 5 days a week now too. It doesn't happen every day, every week, but I really enjoy that. Get up in the morning and whatever comes to me, I share it.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, the best ideas happen to me like either I'm at the gym or I'm driving or I'm taking my shower, and it's just like I'm running to the computer dripping wet, like I gotta write this down before I forget it, you know. Um, I mean,
Yeah.
you just never know where the inspiration is going to come. But yeah, if you're stuck, it's hard to force it. It's best to just do something completely unrelated. Maybe go take a walk, go run some errands, whatever it is. And then you'll be like, oh, wow, the floodgates have opened now.
Yeah.
An
That's
idea.
one thing I learned too recently. Got to capture those ideas right away or they're gone. Like when you're walking the dog, by the time you get home, you forgot.
Right.
So I record it on my phone now. I used to have a little notebook, but now I just record a note
Yeah.
and have like 100 ideas for emails if I don't know what I'm going to write about.
Yeah. I usually will email them to myself, my ideas. But there are times where I don't take the phone with me on the dog walk. And I, like you, I'm running back to the house. Like,
Yeah.
good way to get some surprise cardio in, right? It's like, oh,
It's
wait.
amazing how fast it disappears from your head.
Well, I have a good memory supplement for you.
Oh, good. So what about, you talked about AI, can people starting to write emails with AI? What's your take on that?
Well, I did a little deep dive into one of the popular AI programs marketed to copywriters about a year or two ago. And I even tested it out to write out, some, I think it was about a year ago, some possible copy for the research product that I just recently launched called Research Beast. And, it's just, the problem is usually there's so little input that you can give them to start. Like I think there was like maybe 400 character limit or something, right?
Hmm.
Well, I mean, when I write a promotion for something that I'm doing for a client, I may have 40 pages anyway, just of research nuggets and copy ideas and things that I'm distilling into my brain and then coming up with the ideas and the actual copy. So to only start with that limited amount of input is such a handicap.
Yeah.
And anything you put in is going to basically sound very much like anything else. It's going to be very generic. You're going to get this very generic. I mean, again, like if you're just selling a commodity kind of thing or something that's super simple and maybe low cost, maybe you can use it. Oh, look, I got somebody raving about my research product. Thank you. But yeah, it just limits you right from the beginning. It's that it's going to sound generic. Sometimes it's going to lead you down the wrong path. I mean, it's one thing to start with I don't know if I can use a bad word here, but an SHITT first draft, right? Which the Anne Lamott, bird by bird. That's when I first heard that term. And P.S. I'm going to see her speak this Friday night. I'm really excited.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but get that crappy first draft out, right? And maybe it's good for that, but just don't let it lead you astray too much because it could be pretty bad.
It can
And
be
you
a
might be
starting
better off.
point, but it can be bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
I've
you might
heard
just
them.
be better off just taking what, do your deep dive, do your research, maybe even try using your phone and just say something out loud. Like I've done that before. And you
Yeah.
just get that transcribed and there's your crappy first draft right there. Right now
Yeah.
you got something to work with and it's original because it came from you and it's the distillation of all this stuff, all these inputs and not just 400 characters.
Yeah. Years ago, I bought some of those templates.
Mm.
And it's like a starting point, but it's like so bad that it wasn't my thoughts. It wasn't my voice. That's one thing I learned writing 4 books now. You have a
Yeah.
voice. And when people use your voice in your writing, people really connect with you.
Yeah, I think especially if you're writing for yourself, you're doing your personality type stuff. It has to be original. I mean, if I'm writing a promotion for a memory supplement, let's say, I will look at a lot of different memory supplement promotions that have been successful and I'll kind of distill those different headlines and kind of think about them and not copy them, but there'll be like more inputs, right? That will
Yeah.
help me generate something. I remember having this one book that Jay Abraham wrote. It was like a little special report. Like when I first started called 37, I don't know, headlines. It was a better headline than that. I can't remember now what it was, but I still would pull it out every once in a while and just be like, hey, there's like all these different headline structures to study that you could then adapt to pretty much any kind of product. And, so I guess it's kind of a formula, but the templates can be tricky because I'd rather study actual real swipes and kind of distill from that.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen some of those copywriting programs and email, and they generate emails for you. It's like, Do you actually speak that way? No.
Yeah, I mean, again, I have not spent a lot of time studying them. I'm sure they will get better over time. I mean, technology is really pretty amazing. Um, but I think there's going to be certain types of copy for, products also need to be more differentiated than ever. And so, again, unless you're just in sort of a, you know, commodity type product or market, where it doesn't matter. But when you start trying to sell something for premium prices and you've got to differentiate, you're going to have much more complex stories to tell about those products. And I think it's going to be harder for AI to be able to do that. You still need copywriters.
Yeah. Maybe it'd be good if you had a library of your own material that analyzed, then it would create stuff out of your voice.
Well, I mean, I will confess to sometimes repurposing emails I've run before and maybe adapting them. But again, it was my original stuff to begin with. I think it'd be hard for someone else to use that because it's me, it's not them, right?
Oh, some people try to steal it anyway.
Yeah, again, like we just said, that's a mistake. Find your authentic voice that feels true, and you tell your stories. People want to
Yeah.
hear your stories, and you don't think you have a fascinating life. You probably have some funny things that just happen in a typical day that they can relate to, and you can put a little spin on and turn it
We
into
can
a
all
lesson
relate to
about
that.
something else,
Right. Instead of your trip to Dubai and your blah, 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 traveling the world.
Tampa. I mean, I just went to Tampa. I've never been to Dubai. I know some people who did. I think there was just a conference out there. A lot of people just went to Dubai, but not me.
Yeah.
Have any Dubai
Exactly.
stories? Sorry.
I find it's so much easier to be myself and just go from that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Gary Barnes says, don't tell our stories. We'll
Yeah.
share that for another time. We were in a mastermind together in LA.
Oh. Okay.
Interesting.
There's a story. I guess that goes in your next email.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. So how can people learn more about what you do and get in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my website. It's kimschwalm.com, KIMSCHWALM, or the same URL will get you there. It's called getdangerouslygood.com.
Oh, I like that.
I will show people how to get dangerously good.
So what's Research Beast? Since Dave put it in there, he's got me curious.
So this is a course that reveals my 6-step approach process to doing research. And it's everything from pulling together, all the stuff you need to get started, to doing something I call the PRISM exercise, which it allows you to get really laser focused on who your prospect is and the biggest emotions driving them. And then from there, you go to a 5-step features and benefits exercise. It goes way beyond the typical 2-step one. And once you get to this point, you probably have quite a lot of copy even that you're ready to roll. But then there's what did I say, 5? Or there's 2 or 3 more steps after that to get to. And it walks you through to the point that you have a very detailed copy platform and outline. And then you are ready to just, probably at least 40-50% of your work is done at that point. And then you can write your copy a lot faster. We can write better, stronger copy, and you can do it much faster. So,
Great.
yeah.
Sounds
So
good.
you never want to shortchange research. It is really the most important step.
I'm doing a class with Lori Morgan right now on bullets. 6 weeks of just bullets.
Wow. And how's that going for you?
We're in week 2. It's good.
I'd love to hear an email about that.
Oh, you will, definitely. Well, great, Kim. This has been really great talking to you.
Great talking with you. Yeah, Lori Morgan is another great person to get on the list, and Laura Belgray and Ben Settle. I mean, these are all people that do a lot of personality type emails, and hopefully you'll get on my list too. So,
yeah.
And hopefully you'll enjoy it.
Great. And what's your website again?
It's kimschwalm.com or getdangerouslygood.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Great being here. Thank you so much, Ted.
You finished your first LinkedIn Live. Congratulations.
I know. Thank you. I'm just looking to see what Dave wrote, expanded his view of what he needs to find out. Yep. Good. Yeah. Great to have me here. Thank you.
Thanks.